to Getting Strange, a Lone Gunman rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And we're nearly there.
Nearly. It's been a long old crazy trip.
Yes. We've not been recording regularly because I fell ill, Christmas, and just not... Well, you lost your voice and I was exhausted.
Yeah. And motivation was not high.
Yeah. But it's better this week. Still not good, but it's better.
You did title our last episode Doldrums.
I did. I was really stuck on something else.
I think it spoke for itself, that title.
Yes. Well, I think it reflected my feelings towards the series at that point in time. I'm not sure what this one's going to be called, but it'd be something slightly better than Doldrums.
Not Doldrums.
Not Doldrums. I don't think we've got any news, or do we?
No, well, I've been out of commission for the last fortnight without my voice, so I haven't really been on the socials or anything like that.
Okay, so we'll leave that for now, so we're going to have to charge straight into The Lying Game. Directed by Richard Compton, written by Nandi Bao, and first broadcast on the 4th of May 2001. Guest stars: Catherine Dent played Carol Strode, who we previously saw in Trevor.
Ah, yeah, she was Trevor's mom?
Yes. And she showed up in Frasier.
Okay.
Robert Lewis was Jeff Strode, who has been in Eve, Dwayne Barry, and Paperclip.
Oh, really?
And shows up in Millennium. Tony Dennison was Larry Rose, who was in Atlas Shrugged, who is John Galt. And Robert Rousing was Mr. Memory, who was in Soft Light and Small Potatoes.
Okay.
He was the doctor in Small Potatoes, at least.
So do you have a synopsis of The Lying Game?
Yes. At Club Tamarind in Wilmington, Delaware, Mr. Memory entertains the crowd with his vast reservoir of knowledge. A group of men in suits are meeting there during the show. A man has followed one of them there, and he intends to blackmail the man in question called Mr. Rose. This man with glasses follows Mr. Rose into the bathroom to discuss the situation, but doesn't find the man there. Instead, A.D. Walter Skinner is there. He calls him a son of a bitch while slamming him against one of the stall doors as the man's glasses fly off his face. Outside the bathroom, shots are heard. A waiter goes inside and finds the blackmailer dead, face down in a pool of blood. Jimmy Bond then begins a wraparound narrative about people who go through life not really knowing each other. After releasing the latest issue of the newspaper, Jimmy asks where Byers is, since he usually goes with him to the printers, but Byers is nowhere to be found. They speculate if he's out with a girl, but no one believes it seriously. Jimmy goes outside to take the check to the printers, finds his car is being paid for non-payment. While this is happening, Byers shows up and presents Jimmy with Carol Strode. She's going to help us catch a murderer. Inside, the lone gunman listened to Carol's story with rapt attention. She and her brother had been estranged for several years, but he was recently murdered. His computer had been set up to automatically send a message in case of his death, and the message claimed he had pissed off a lot of people over the years, and one of them must have killed him. Asking Byers how he knows Carol, Byers explains he knew her brother in college. Strode's brother's body was cremated by accident, further complicating any investigations into his demise. The lone gunman and Carol Strode check out the bathroom where her brother was murdered. Mr. Memory comes out of one of the stalls and Jimmy immediately recognizes him, and Mr. Memory recognizes Jimmy. When pressed, Mr. Memory admits that the glasses he is currently wearing are the same as the ones from the dead body, and he found them behind the toilet. The glasses appear to be unique as an electronic wire is hanging out of them. Elsewhere, Skinner shows up while Mr. Rose and his wife are out walking their dog. Skinner is frustrated with Rose since he's had to clean up the man's messes. He informs her he is confiscating Rose's computer. When Rose asks why, the wife replies it's because her husband can't keep it in his pants. Furuki explains to Carol Strode that the found glasses are some kind of tiny video camera, while Langley mentions he found the location that the information was uploaded to. They find an apartment that Carol's brother Jeff kept under an alias. His computer was wiped off all data, but they discover a backup drive hidden, but still in line of sight of the main computer. This downloads and stores all of the main computer's data. They discover videos of the people Jeff was blackmailing kept as insurance. The last video shows Skinner attacking Jeff right before the video stops. Back at the offices, all but Byers want to publish the story, suggesting that Skinner was the man who murdered Jeff. Byers think the story is too flimsy. There isn't enough proof to hurl accusations at a high-ranking member of the FBI. They need to learn more. Furuki suggests that Byers doesn't want to run the story because it makes Jeff Strode look bad as a blackmailer, but Byers claims he doesn't want to ruin the weak story. Eves is called in and she looks at the footage. Although she doesn't recognise the intended blackmail victim, she recognises the man he was sitting with as a Russian mob boss, Arif Fruman. She posits that maybe Skinner works for the mob since plenty of Moscow police work for the man as well. To figure out the blackmail victim is, since they must be the key to the whole situation. Mr. Rose and Mr. Freeman meet in an alley. Freeman is a bit upset about the man that Rose apparently killed in his favourite club, but ultimately trusts Rose. He knows the man was blackmailing Rose over his mistress, and the man's secret is a man he can trust. Byers, Langley, Ferricky, and Carol Strode follow Skinner to a park where he meets with Mr. Rose. They leave Carol in the van with her patch into the video glasses that Langley is using himself. Langley, Ferricky, and Byers spy on Skinner, but are stopped by him on the way out of the park. Freeman and one of his henchmen are followed as well when Rose returns to his car after meeting Skinner. Freeman's henchman brings him into the car where he discovers that Carol Strode has also been abducted. Jim and Eves discuss how they can find the guys who have now disappeared. Eves can't find any information to suggest they were arrested or in hospital. Jimmy suggests they track the van and they find it was being towed from Banning Park. The FBI agents begin beating down the door of the lone government offices, and Eves and Jimmy hide in a crawl space while the officers scour the place. In a safe house, Skinner shows the three guys the article they wrote about an FBI director killing a man in the bathroom of Club Tamarind. Skinner leaves the room and comes back with the supposed dead Jeff Strode. Strode doesn't seem to know Byers despite supposedly being roommates. Skinner explains the lone gunmen are interfering with an FBI sting operation. Mr. Rose is their operative. Byers responds they were investigating Jeff Strode's murder and didn't plan on interfering with the FBI. Strode recounts he found an importer who was having an affair with a woman. He was an FBI agent, posing as an importer with his cover wife being another FBI agent, and the woman he was having an affair with was his real wife. He stepped into the wrong situation, blackmailing an undercover FBI agent, so Skinner had to fake Strode's death to give Rose credibility. Freeman is actually dealing in plutonium and looking for an importer to work with. However, now Skinner had to deal with them, and it meant he lost track of his agent entirely. All they know is they saw him and Carol Strode leaving with Freeman. At the safe house, Langley tries to use the glasses uplink to contact Eves and Jimmy, who have recovered the van. Skinner tells them Rose was released and informed them that they're keeping Carol. Jeff Strode and Byers get into a bit of a fight about Jeff getting him into this mess. By using the male pronoun to describe Carol, they are forced to reveal that Strode was Byers' college roommate, Carl Strode. This put Carol in greater danger since the driver's license showed her birth date and name that showed no one born on that date with that name. Jimmy fears lone gunmen are dead and blames Skinner. Byers tries to tell the FBI his friend's secret and how it might endanger them. He doesn't much like Jeff because he blabbed to everyone about Carl's plan to become a woman before she was ready to tell people. They realize they can disable the video camera, remove the wire on the window, and escape the safe house. Skinner tells Rose about what to do with the Russian mobsters and that if he orders a rum and coke, he can get help from the bartender. He heads in while Eves and Jimmy watch him. Jimmy's just like Walter Skinner, including a mask that looks exactly like him. Eves gives him a mouthpiece so he sounds exactly like Skinner as well. Jimmy's extremely angry because he believes Skinner killed Langley, Ferricky, and Byers. The others have escaped the safe house, feeding in a camera and loop tape of them sitting around the room. The Russian mobsters bring Carl Strode to the table with Mr. Rose, and Freeman's associate puts a weapon to Rose's chest. The plutonium pit they are smuggling is too big to bring into the room with them. Freeman demands that Rose explain who Strode is and who Rose is, or they'll kill him. Rose tries to shake them off, but Jimmy Bond as Skinner arrives, waving. He comes over, acting a bit overly emotional, demanding a payoff for all the people he has been killing for the mob to cover their tracks. The bartender comes over and suggests they order a rum and coke. Jimmy as Skinner wants a Cuba Libre, but eventually settles on rum and coke. The agents all draw guns on the mobsters, who surrender without incident. The FBI locate the plutonium in the back of the vehicle as the real Skinner heads in to find fake Skinner and Carol Strode. Skinner circles Jimmy while Carol Strode embraces her living brother Jeff. Jimmy as Skinner excitedly hugs the not murdered lone gunman and apologizes to Skinner for thinking he killed them. Back at the office, they admire the latest article and they've managed to not reveal Carol's secret. Jimmy and Eves already knew it the moment they met Carol. The lone gunman explained that the Moscow wire service was paying them 125,000 rubles, less than $44,000 US, for the rights to reprint their story. They used them in to get Jimmy his car back.
Thank you.
So, there was a moment when blood kind of ran cold in this episode.
Are you going for the moment where they revealed Carol's secret?
Yeah, and it's like this is an early 2000s American TV series. Oh god, who's going to say what? Which one of you is going to be the absolute jerk here?
I had bets on Langley, and I was pleasantly surprised by Langley's reaction.
I was pleasantly surprised by everyone. I mean, I think the synopsis is slightly off, but all the characters actually do behave correctly, which is interesting.
The only one that doesn't, briefly, is Jeff, but even when Jeff is reunited with Carol, the two of them kind of hug it out.
Yeah, and it's also implied to be a past issue rather than a current one.
Yeah.
He blabbed her secret back before she transitioned.
He still doesn't seem very repentant about it, though, when Byers calls him out on it.
No, he doesn't, and that's a black mark against him. And it's kind of interesting because it's when they meet each other, Jeff is kind of like going sort of very kind of remembers Byers, but not fully. And it wasn't clear why that was then until the revelations come out.
The biggest indication that Byers is lying, really. Byers seems shady through most of the episode, but it's when his supposed roommate kind of goes, "Oh, hey, you're that Byers guy, aren't you?" kind of gives him away.
Wait, what? But yes, I mean, that was a pleasant surprise that it wasn't going to have warnings plastered across the episode saying, "Oh, this episode is not aged well."
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like Chandler's father in Friends and things like that. The ones that you didn't really bat an eye of it when it first came out in the 90s, even though you really should have done.
Yeah.
But nowadays, it's just complete cringe. It just feels really, really disrespectful.
Yes. Hooray for not messing up and also explaining why the title is The Lying Game, being a reference to The Crying Game, which is infamous for a similar plot point handled. I can't remember how well that does it.
The twist in The Crying Game is very famous these days, but I must confess I've never seen it.
Neither have I. Lindsay Ellis did a video which touched on it, and I think Silence of the Lambs, and I can't remember quite how the Crying Game, comes out in the wash.
Okay. I think it won awards at the time it came out, but then again, this is something at the time it came out, I imagine, that wasn't talked about on film very often.
No, and I can't remember if it was more the public reaction to the film or what the film does is how it comes out. So we can't really weigh on that, but yeah, the episode title is very blatantly a nod to this film.
Yeah.
For more than one reason. We thought it was purely because I don't think we had an idea what it was called, The Lying Game, other than, oh, it's another reference.
I kind of assumed it was just playing into the fact that Byers and Skinner, nobody's being entirely honest in the early part of this story. And in my head, I was thinking, well, they were thinking, oh, what can we do with lies in the title? Aha, we can do a clever play on The Lying Game.
Yeah. So one thing that came up a lot in this episode, and comes up in Captain Toby show as well, is that it's hard not to sort of say, guys, do you not want to go and talk to Scully or Doggett or Mulder? Because Mulder is alive in the timeline at this point now.
I thought it's twofold, really. Is one, they're making allegations against Skinner, who is Mulder and Scully's boss.
Yes.
And two is the fact that essentially it's kind of a weird locked room mystery at the start, which would have been Mulder's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Of the fact that this guy went into a room, they know he met with Skinner, nobody saw Skinner leave somehow.
No.
And then the body was found there.
Or the other guy, because both Skinner and the other Mr. Rose teleported out of that room.
Yeah.
But it's that if you suspect Skinner is involved with this, I would have thought you'd talk to Doggett and Scully. I realise one of the hindering factors is you can't necessarily get Gillian Anderson or Robert Patrick in easily to do this. But the fact there's no even line to explain that they have FBI contacts who they are friends with.
Mm.
I mean, the lone gunman, I'm going to hang on this forever, went to see Scully literally after she gave birth.
They know where she lives.
They know where she lives, but they are, you don't invite someone around to come and see your child after you've given birth unless you are good personal friends.
Yeah.
So that's the level lone gunman we're operating on.
And at this stage, they clearly have, after episodes like Three of a Kind.
Yeah.
We've moved on from she knows of them because they're kind of Mulder's vague friends to they're her friendship circle too.
Exactly. So it's
particularly Frohickey.
Yeah. So it's the fact that no one says, okay, we think something shady's going on with Skinner. We don't know what to do with this information because obviously we can't go to the FO normally. We're going to use the contacts. But again, this is a crossover series problem, but it's weird.
But also the lone gunmen are kind of acquainted with Skinner in the main series as well. He knows of them, they're familiar with each other. They must vaguely trust Skinner because they trust Mulder.
Well, you think so. And so he does, when he meets up with them in the park, he does know who they are without any kind of preamble.
Mm.
Like, oh, what are you three doing here? So it just, I don't know, is it basically this didn't involve Skinner at first and it's been altered to have Skinner in it?
It should possibly be noted that Mitch Pileggi did really want to play this role as well, on the basis of, according to statements made by Vince Gilligan, in real life he's an incredibly funny, quick-witted person.
Okay.
But he plays Skinner, who is incredibly dour and serious. So he actually jumped at the fact to play Skinner in a comedic role like this, because you have the whole sequence in which it's Mitch Pileggi pretending to be Jimmy.
Yeah.
Well, rather, in the actual story, it is Jimmy pretending to be Skinner, but of course would require him to I believe I read somewhere it said that he had to watch multiple videos of Jimmy's actors' performances just so he could get that mannerism down.
So not doing the classic one of you film it through with the first actor and then make the second actor watch it and then redo the scene with them.
That's like famously how they did the Polyjuice bit with Helen Bonham Carter in the Harry Potter movie, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, that was really good because Mitch Pileggi is actually really good at being Jimmy, being Skinner.
He's very funny and it comes across perfectly.
Yes. You do feel it's Jimmy there. It's not really... It's not... It's a good performance.
It's probably my highlight of the episode.
I would agree with you there. But then it was the bit where we kind of fell down on it very quickly is when they have this video footage of Skinner possibly murdering someone in the bathroom. First instinct was, hey, it's not like you've used these realistic rubber masks for multiple episodes with voice changes and that there's a good chance that's not Skinner you've got on video.
I think given that Skinner is quite shocked by the realistic rubber mask at the end, we've got to assume that somehow this is a technology that only Eves has.
Yeah, and the fact that she uses it for like the worst scams.
I believe it's like you said in the main X-Files series of you'll get to a point where every major character can't trust anyone.
No.
Because you'll think it's a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
It's the same in this series as all the main characters know that this perfect mask and voice modulation technology exists.
Yeah.
Therefore you can't trust that anyone is who they say they are.
Exactly. And more to the point, Skinner is semi-acquainted with shapeshifters, or at least read Mulder's reports about them, so yeah.
I think at this stage Skinner believes in them, to be honest.
So this is after Requiem, so he's seen a UFO in person, so he's beyond doubting.
But there's also Doggett's introductory episode, and sorry, you're past the stage where I can remember the name of episodes now.
That was Within or Without.
But, Doggett struggles to cope with the concept of the shapeshifter. Skinner and Scully do not by this stage.
So it's... And the Lone Gunmen actually have never seen one. They've been in shapeshifter storylines, but they've never actually come face to face with them.
The Lone Gunmen technically don't believe in aliens, though, either.
Which, again, was my complaint about Requiem as well, where they were tracking... Requiem and Within and Without, where they were tracking the UFOs. It's like, this is not your wheelhouse.
There's an episode somewhere where Mulder exposits something very supernatural, and they say, that's why we like you, Mulder. Your ideas are weirder than ours.
Well, that was EB, their first appearance.
There you go.
Because, they don't believe in aliens, and they think there's a 6-experimental aircraft at Area 51. All of this to say, though, is that in the X-Files on Lone Gunman, there are multiple explanations for how Skinner can seem to have shot someone, and him be beyond reproach, and no one mentions one of them. Despite the fact they use the realistic rubber mask in the same episode.
I still think on the basis of this is not Skinner's first rodeo. He's been accused of murder at least twice before in the series.
Well, he's also murdered a few people. Let's not mince words here.
So at the same time, because the Lone Gunmen trust him, and they must be able to dredge up these prior allegations like in Avatar against him.
Yeah.
You must therefore know that Skinner is on the level. Mulder trusts them. They know he's a decent guy. Why do we immediately jump to printing the headline about FBI Assistant Director murders man?
I don't know either. I think I can only go with it wasn't meant to be Skinner originally, and something came up where they discovered they could get Mitch Pileggi in to do a cameo.
Yeah.
And that's what's done it. And that's the only way I can think of is to make this work. Both ways of why you would write it like this and why you'd wind up like that.
I must admit as well that the solution that Jeff isn't actually dead is too obvious.
Yes. Because I think it's when they sort of say, oh, and then his body was inadvertently cremated, and you're going, what?
It's pretty much from the word go, where Byers said, oh, she couldn't even see his body because he was accidentally cremated too early. It's like, so he's not dead.
No. There's no way he's dead. And,
I mean, this is the Joker effect, isn't it? The whole, that you can't assume someone's dead unless you see the body.
Yes. And if nobody, then there's a good chance they're going to be alive, even if they, by all rights, they should be dead. Basic TV stuff at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was not a shocking revelation, and also the fact that we're pretty sure that Skinner has only killed troublesome people like Krychek.
I'm also not entirely sure why Mr. Memory was a plot point, because he's not really ever relevant at all.
No, I mean, as you said, I think one of us said that it's the kind of thing where you'd expect the guy with the amazing memory to factor into the solution, or explain why things happened, or who was where and what happened. But no.
It's like, why did we even put a character with an eidetic memory in there when we're not going to actually use it for other than his stage performance.
Yes, because that could have literally anything else happening on stage. I think the only thing I can think of is you wanted someone for them to meet in the bathroom. So that to be a man. And that person has to have need of glasses to appear intelligent. Quite why Mr. Memory didn't have glasses originally, I don't understand, because that's really easy to sort out, dude.
Yeah.
But I think it's the whole reason why he could possibly have picked up those glasses from the floor.
From behind the toilet.
From behind the toilet. Not notice the wire dangling out the end of the, whatever the hell this bit at the back is called. And again, we get into the whole technology that's a bit dubiously advanced for the year 2000.
I guess nowadays we have things like Google Glasses and it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
No, I mean, we had this back in the jail episode.
Yeah.
Maximum Bio as
well.
well.
Of course he did, yeah.
Yeah, they had their whole glasses radio setup thing, which was a little bit plausible.
Yes, every time James Bond uses recording contact lenses and that sort of thing.
Should we talk about, and this is going to be a thing in the Captain Toby show as well, about how I remember it happening, didn't remember it being this late on, that basically the cast is split into two by this stage.
Oh, the fact that we have the Lone Gunman and then we have Jimmy and Eves.
Yeah, so we've got the people who are ostensibly the focus of the series, and then the two attractive members for the audience to try and trick people who don't want to watch the Lone Gunman into watching the series.
This has actually been a reoccurring thing because we saw it also in things like Diagnostic Jimmy.
Yeah, although Diagnostic Jimmy had the world's worst nurse to make things a bit more complicated this time, and indeed in the Captain Toby show, we get them running off on their own.
Yeah.
And it doesn't strike me as a good thing at all. I mean, I can see why they've done it, and I understand what the impulse is, but at the same time, you've got the Lone Gunman are basically just trapped in a safe house while Eves and Jimmy go off and do investigation stuff.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
I think you also pointed out it's a case of, why is Eves here?
I've been asking that question for so long.
Oh yeah, but I mean, specifically this episode, I mean, for most of the rest of them, there's been some kind of plausible excuse somewhere along the line. The one with the grizzly bears was flimsy. We had to infer that one. And the tango smuggling one, I think ultimately it turned out there wasn't a reason for her to be around, but she just was.
This is actually something I was going to raise for the Captain Toby show, to be fair, in which she just kind of lets herself into the Lone Gunman building now and seems to be appraised of what's going on. But we cut out that bit that we used to have where we actually call Eves or something like that.
And it feels lazy. As in, you have to involve Eves in the plot somehow. We're going to stop any kind of hoops to get her involved.
We don't even have that bit now where we say, we've got no choice, we've got to call her, or something like that.
We call her off screen so she just arrives in around the middle part of Act 1.
Yeah.
Because she has to be in the episode because she's in the title sequence.
I also felt the plot of this one, while I didn't dislike it, it's not the worst episode by a long shot. It just seems a bit basic.
It's a mess.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's a procedural police show made slightly more convoluted, but not in an interesting way. Because all it is undercover agent has to get plutonium off weapons smuggler. And the only complication thing is this random blackmailer that somehow got into this situation when you'd think the FBI would have sort of known who he was ahead of time.
And almost ruins their sting.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like the weird joke that the woman he's having an affair with is his actual wife.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is at least a unique setup. And but yeah, and I think the other thing, I think, is it's the dramatic thing of Skinner encountering Jeff in that bathroom, and Skinner calling him a son of a bitch. It's the whole, this guy doesn't know what you're doing. Yes, he's kind of a scumbag, but you can't treat him like this because he's wandered into something by accident.
Yeah.
And you're treating him like someone who's compromising your investigation deliberately.
Yeah, true.
Skinner, calm down. It's not like he did not walk past all the FBI agents on the outside. Also, I do have to query Skinner saying, oh yes, you can get help from the bartender by ordering rum and Coca-Cola. But it's like, but he ordered rum and Coca-Cola and everyone else in the room is an FBI agent.
Yeah.
Skinner? That must be an overreaction.
Do we need a code like this?
Yeah. And then we've got things like him threatening Jeff's life, and Carol is there for almost no reason at all. It's a messy
I guess
episode.
Carol exists to get the lone gunman on board because she's got that personal connection with Byers.
Yeah. It's not like Diagnosis Jimmy, which felt like 4 bits of an episode glued together. And it's not like the Tango episode, which felt like one joke and a setup that would be better in a comedy series.
Technically speaking, this is a comedy series.
Well, technically, I don't know what it's meant to be anymore.
Well, Vince Gilligan calls it a comedy series.
Well, while the Three of a Kind and The Unusual Suspects were funny, that wasn't all they were, because they're not like the actual comedy episodes.
I've commented before on how the humour in this series falls flat for me,
Yeah.
just because it's got a kind of toilet humour bent to it, and it just seems a bit juvenile.
We don't have that here in the same way.
No, they seem to have vaguely moved away from it.
No, I've got the dog. There's a dog humping Langley's leg for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, we did manage to get some of the childish humour in there as well. I know some adults do find this funny as well, but
it's one of these things...
divisive, let's say, humour.
It's divisive, but it's also a plot point of why it's in here, because this adds nothing, because it doesn't blow their cover.
No.
They're not discovered because of this. It's just something to happen to Langley. As you said, Langley's the butt of the joke again.
He always is, and I don't get it.
No.
It's unless your joke is revolving around something that a short, middle-aged white man would be entertaining doing, like Frohike being the tango master and things like that. Otherwise, it's always Langley that's the butt of the joke, and Byers is always our straight man.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we mentioned it last time, and it's still very weird that no one has a character arc. Yeah, I will agree that this episode is an improvement on the last few. It doesn't feel like... I mean, it's difficult to say if it should or shouldn't be a longer episode because it involves Skinner. If it didn't involve Skinner, this would be one of those, it's outside the warehouse, but then you've got a plausible reason because it's Byers' friend coming to them for help.
Yeah.
And that kind of works as a reason to get into it in a way that some of the other ones haven't.
And it does have some nice little character moments. I like Byers doing everything he can to defend his friend's secret, even from his other friends, purely because it's just not his story to tell.
Yes, that was nice.
Mm.
And I did think it was also very odd to see where the lone gunmen, their living quarters finally.
Oh, they're weird kind of cubicle rooms.
Yeah, and it's the contrast between how the office downstairs looks, and everything is cut into it, and we've got this more open. They're cubicle rooms, but they're kind of very open.
I think in my head it's kind of strange because it's a cross between a kind of military barrack and a traditional Japanese dwelling.
Yes, that's exactly why I was trying to get to. And it's the kind of thing where you want to say that the lone gunmen are, one step above survivalists. You'd think they'd have they'd actually be lower down in a bunker, like a radiation bunker, and sleep on bunk beds, and have all the supplies arrayed for when the bombs inevitably fall.
It's funny you should mention that because the X-Files comic has a different living situation for the lone gunmen.
Yeah, I remember, yes.
And I feel I should talk about this after we've watched Jump the Shark.
Yes. But it's odd to see the lone gunmen living space, and it doesn't seem to bear any resemblance to the rest of their office and their life. It's like, it looks kind of nice in there, and everywhere else is junky and weird.
It's a bit Spartan, but yeah, it looks nice and clean and vaguely comfortable.
Yeah, and it feels so at odds with their office and their van.
We did kind of know they lived together because you've seen them all kind of in their pyjamas eating breakfast before. And,
it's always been a nice touch, but it's just odd. One other thing, and I think the synopsis kind of skipped over it, is the lone gunmen feel like they're exploiting Jimmy in this episode.
How so?
Well, because he's still funding the paper. Because it's the first time we've come back to this plot point, is the fact that he's...
I think the first time since Jimmy's introduction we've come back to this.
And it's the thing that they say, you need to give us X amount of money because the price has gone up again. And as a result, or the implied result of him funding the newspaper is he's lost his car because the payments have been not kept up.
Yeah.
And it's the guys who's still not profitable. I know it's been a while and we thought the plot point was just abandoned because it wasn't a great plot point at this best of times. It's like Bob's Burgers had a whole lot of stuff about their finances, then that dropped away as the series progressed because that's not an interesting plot after a while.
You just occasionally get a little joke about, I thought we were supposed to run a restaurant, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
to excuse the fact that they've closed it for the 20th time.
Exactly. Or Mr. Fish would occasionally come up and saying, I bought you a box of envelopes for Christmas so you could put the run checks in them to send them to me.
I guess that if we are treating Lone Gunman as a comedy series, that's all you really need to keep the idea going.
Yeah. But Jimmy bears no grudge to the Lone Gunman for basically wrecking his personal life with funding the newspaper.
Jimmy is less intelligent than a chimpanzee.
Oh, I know that, but at the same time, we kind of touched on it before, where does Jimmy's immense wealth come from, and how is he single-handedly supporting this paper?
We've got to assume it's kind of generational wealth or something like that, given he doesn't actually work.
No, but he must be now running out of money to lose the car.
So he's not Bertie Wooster level wealth, is what you're saying?
Yes, I mean, if he's Bertie Wooster... Okay, now I've got visions of the Lone Gunman newspaper being like Limmy Lady's boudoir.
Oh, yeah. I quite like that, actually.
So, yeah, we don't know how Jimmy's funding the Lone Gunman newspaper, which is still lacking in profit, and Lone Gunman are just taking advantage of him, apparently.
Yeah, it seems so, based on that reading.
I mean, I don't think it's meant to seem like that, but that's how it comes across, given that they're completely reliant on him to actually get everything going. And this one they get paid $44,000, which then spend to get Jimmy his car back.
But yeah, and so I presume we're still not in profit.
Yeah, that's not good. Do we have much else for this episode? I mean, other than Jimmy and Eve's somehow evading an FBI knocking on the door and hiding in a crawl space somewhere.
Oh yeah, forgot about that bit.
It's not like Diagnosis Jimmy where it's like bits and pieces of other episodes, but it feels all over the place again.
Yeah, I don't think this episode's terrible. Like someone said on our Twitter, where they considered Tango de los Posteros, where the series picks up. It does pick up, but it's like saying now it's kind of average where it was bad. We're not picking up and saying, yep, now this is suddenly a great episode.
No. And I think also it feels odd to have the speed with which Jimmy jumps to the Lone Gunman dead, and Eves doesn't even try to say, it's been a few hours, calm down.
Yeah. Gotta say though, I did quite like Jimmy's monologues. They were kind of sweet, and because Jimmy is a bit of a dimwit, it wasn't like the pretentious ones you often see at the start of X-Files conspiracy episodes, where you wonder what the hell Mulder's even trying to say.
Well, Scully sometimes.
Yeah. Jimmy's was kind of very to the point, very heartfelt, very sweet, and I did kind of like his little monologue, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mm.
But if we have nothing else, we will have to talk about Captain Toby, I suppose.
The Captain Toby Show.
Directed by Carol Banker. Written by John Gilnitz, being Frank Spotnitz, Vince Gilligan, and John Shaban. And first broadcast on the 1st of June 2001. Guest stars posthumously, Tom Paston played Fred Tobolowsky, or Captain Toby. He was in Christmas with the Cranks.
Okay.
And The Simpsons. Ben Bass plays John Gilnitz. Probably the longest the one who's actually got the most screen time and lasts the longest of the lot of them.
This, if you haven't seen any of our previous podcasts, John Gilnitz is a portmanteau of John Shaban, Frank Spotnitz, and Vince Gilligan's names. He's often a bit character in X-Files episodes written by them, and usually he's either already dead or dies very quickly.
Yeah, this one manages a whole 2 acts, I think, before dropping dead.
Yeah.
He was in Dead Like Me and Bride of Chucky.
Okay.
Sia Batten was Agent Blythe. She was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning.
Oh, quality.
Star Trek Enterprise, Star Trek Voyager, and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. As different characters. And because I have to bring up every time, the Red Shoe Diaries.
That just keeps coming up, doesn't it?
And Douglas Newell, who is credited solely as the puppeteer, sadly, was in It, the 1990s version.
The puppeteer for the crab?
Yeah.
He has a name. His name's Wayne.
Wayne, okay. So would you like to tell us about Captain Toby and his show?
Actually, yeah. Our episode this time opens in 1978 with a brief monologue from Langley, who reminisces about how he hated his childhood that we've previously seen where he grew up on the farm, but was happiest when he watched television. He remembers fondly his favourite show, which was the Cap and Toby show. We then cut immediately to the present, and we see a very depressed-looking Langley as his childhood hero is arrested in front of him. We then cut to a scene in which a blonde woman wearing red sunglasses is walking through a shopping mall. She's very clearly being pursued by somebody and manages to get into an elevator while fleeing from him. Her pursuer does not get the same elevator as he crashes into a man in a hot dog costume. However, inside the elevator there is another man waiting for her who draws a gun. Eventually, the original pursuer chases the woman down into the parking garage and finds the man who she met on the elevator already dead on the ground with a presumably poisoned dart in his chest. The woman in the red glasses and the pursuer both fight, and he eventually draws a gun on her. However, when she raises her arms to surrender, a dart shooter on her wrist pops out and hits him in the chest. He dies, whereas she leaves with his weapon. Meanwhile, the three lone gunmen and Jimmy are sat having breakfast while they look through mainstream newspapers. When Jimmy asks what they hope to achieve, he explains that they're looking for news stories that may have slipped through the cracks that would be of an interest to them. When Jimmy asks if he can help, they just give him the comics section to read, and he fixates on the Wizard of Id, particularly a scene in which the king has 3 gemstones on his crown in one panel and 4 on the next. Do bear that in mind, it is vaguely relevant later. Frohickey does eventually spot something of interest. In fact, it's 2 obituaries from men killed by heart attacks on subsequent days. Both are stagehands at the same union, and they both died in the same mall on the same day. Of course, we quickly realise these are the 2 pursuers who were poisoned while chasing the woman with the red glasses. Frohickey and Jimmy go to the mall, where the man dressed as the hot dog recounts how he found the 2 men's bodies in the parking garage. He also mentions the woman, who he calls Rosie, who caught the elevator that one of the dead men had just missed. While they are talking to the hot dog man, he falls over due to his inappropriate costume and breaks his arm, and Frohickey finds a dart on the ground and collects it. In the meantime, Byers and Langley head to the studio where the 2 stagehands work. Langley gets very excited when he realises it's where the Captain Toby show is still filmed. They watch Captain Toby perform a new promo for his brand new show, which bothers the writer and producer of the show, who is John Gilnitz, because Captain Toby is smoking a bubble pipe, which he believes teaches bad habits, even though this has always been a part of Captain Toby's character, and he doesn't see the problem with bubbles. Langley also gets kind of upset when he looks at the stage and discovers they've basically changed everything about the show of his childhood. Captain Toby no longer is the captain of a tugboat, instead he now operates a nuclear submarine that is very technologically advanced. The only things from the original show that seem to remain are Clarence, a puppet crab, who is operated by Wayne, and a portal, which Captain Toby has insisted remains. This magic portal just shows things on a winding screen that kids can talk about with him, but John Gilnitz can't get his head around how illogical it is to have a magic portal that shows outside on a nuclear submarine, because apparently he has no inner child. While Langley struggles to cope with this desecration of his sacred show, Byers questions Gilnitz about the 2 stagehands, whose names are Adam Vaughan and Eric Rice. He also manages to convince Gilnitz to give them their personnel files. Back at the headquarters, Frohickey examines the poisoned dart, assuming that it does indeed contain some kind of fat-acting poison. However, he slips and manages to jab himself with it, asking Jimmy to suck the poison out from his chest. As Jimmy begins to do so, Eves arrives, informing them that whatever was in the dart is no longer poison. It's a very unique toxin from communist China that degrades within a couple of hours. In a cutscene, seemingly linking into this, we see Captain Toby in his dressing room speaking on the telephone in Mandarin. On investigating the 2 dead stagehands, Frohickey learns that they were actually FBI agents from the Chinese Analytical Division, so they decide to investigate all the people working on the show, as one of them seems to be a spy. Langley is reluctant to believe this because, of course, he still has a childish love of the show, and they have to remind him that there is the possibility that it is Captain Toby himself who is the spy. The lone gunmen head back to the Captain Toby show to investigate. In searching Captain Toby's dressing room, Frohickey does in fact find a piece of paper in the pocket of Captain Toby's jacket which is covered in Chinese writing. He assumes that this is proof that Captain Toby is the spy, despite the fact he doesn't know what it says. Meanwhile, we see that Jimmy and Eves are staking out the mall, Jimmy dressed as the hot dog, as they look for the woman in rose-coloured sunglasses, even though Eves thinks it's unlikely that she would return to the scene of a double murder. She does actually return to the scene, however, Jimmy, while trying to tail her, falls off a balcony and lands on a table of donuts, injuring himself. Eves rushes to help him out, just in time for the woman to detain her, revealing herself to be a CIA agent. The woman in the rose glasses, who is actually called Agent Blythe, interrogates both Jimmy and Eves as the paramedics try to pack up Jimmy's potentially broken rib. While she refuses to give anything away, she eventually gets Eves to back off by revealing she knows the truth about her identity. As Eves is visibly upset by this, Jimmy admits that he is an investigative journalist and explains everything. Back at the show, Byers and Langley learn from Gilnitz that the Captain Tommy show is about to be syndicated in China. As they are rejoined by Frohike, who reveals the letter, Byers suggests that the show could actually itself be the way that the spy is getting information to the Chinese government. They don't agree on how this could have been done, but they do realise it could be coded in either the audio or the Visio itself quite easily. At that moment, the FBI show up and arrest Captain Toby, with Agent Blythe, Jimmy and Eves all there. Jimmy apologises for giving the game away to the authorities, as they watch Captain Toby himself get arrested. Back at the headquarters, everyone watches a report of the arrest on television, which reveals the fact that Captain Toby has a Chinese wife who could be the mastermind behind everything, and is funneling secrets to the Chinese through the show, but nobody knows why or how. Langley still refuses to believe that the man would kill 2 FBI agents, and Eves agreed. She translated the note that Byers found and discovered it's a recipe for pot stickers. Frohike points out that the condemning fact that got Captain Toby was that microfilm was found in his dressing room, and the fact that Frohike, who had just searched the dressing room, found nothing of the kind, points the finger towards Blythe planting it. Byers points out that the only way that they can prove that Blythe is the traitor to the US government is to figure out how the information is being transmitted. Meanwhile, back at the set, Gilnitz and Wayne are drinking away their sorrows. Wayne is drinking because Captain Toby was his friend, and Gilnitz because he's now lost the show. As Wayne tells him off, he's sent away by Gilnitz, who realises instantly that the only way that the information could have been given to the Chinese is the magic porthole, the one thing that only Captain Toby controlled and not Gilnitz. However, Agent Blythe arrives at the scene, and as Gilnitz is explaining this, she promptly murders him. Released on bail, Captain Toby returns to the set soon after and enlists Wayne to help him put on his last show, which will have the press in the space of a child audience. The lone gunman and Eves also arrive at the set and scatter to look around. Eves notices an invoice in the trash for a copy shop and asks Jimmy what he saw Blythe doing at the mall. He confirms the fact that she was at the coffee place and left when she realised that Jimmy was watching her. Jimmy and Eves return to the mall to check out the copy shop and discover the porthole transparency for the show. Blythe appears with them and hands over her red-coloured glasses to Eves, revealing that they are printed with an ink that isn't ordinarily visible, but is under red light. Blythe insists that they must come with her, pointing her dart shooter into Eves' back. Back at the show, Captain Toby is giving a heartwarming speech about how America is his home and was founded on some good ideas. However, as he's speaking to this press, the other lone gunmen who are messing around backstage cause the hidden corpse of Gilnitz to fall from the rafters. Back at the mall, Blythe takes Eves and Jimmy to the roof and tries to kill them. However, as she fires a dart at Eves, Jimmy takes the shot for her. Eves and Blythe fight and Eves beats her up, before checking on Jimmy, who reveals that luckily the dart was blocked by the bandages that he had been put on his broken rib. At the end of the show, Langley narrates about the importance of shows for children that contain nice characters like Captain Toby, while they watch a brand new version of the Captain Toby show, now with Wayne as the host, and Captain Toby himself as the producer. At the end of the episode, Captain Toby meets with the lone gunman and thanks them all for vindicating him, while Langley says it's important to have role models that don't bully you because of the way your hair looks. Captain Toby ends by mistaking Langley for a woman.
Thank you. That's the second time we've had that gag.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he's got long blonde hair, but otherwise nothing feminine about him, so obviously he looks like a woman.
Yeah, I just... Ugh. Okay, so again, this is better than a lot of the episodes. At the same time, it's like riddled with so many problems.
There is something I want you to bear in mind while discussing this episode that I'm not sure you're aware of.
Okay.
That technically, in terms of airing, this is the final episode that was aired.
Okay,
It's
that's
often
interesting.
called it's called the Lost Lone Gunman episode often, because knowing that they'd been cancelled, they skipped the final episode ahead in screening order. So this episode was actually aired 3 weeks, I think it was, after the final episode. But when you do it like that and realise it's the swan song of, like, a beloved character retiring and stuff like that, it becomes a lot more poignant.
Yes.
And Langley's final closing comments about the importance of having beloved shows and things like that, you can tell the fact that they were using this episode as their sign-off because they knew this was going to be it.
Yeah, okay. At the same time, though, we've got something else down the line to tackle on that note as well. Okay, that's interesting. I don't think it saves the episode, per se.
No, not necessarily. I actually like this episode, to be fair. This has possibly been my favourite one of the series so far.
Yes.
If I'm not counting Pilot, which is the best episode so far.
Yeah. There is some weirdness in it, though. I think one of the big ones that jumped out to me was Captain Toby has a Chinese wife who appears one time and has one line of dialogue in Mandarin, and that's her done.
She exists as the explanation of why Captain Toby is fluent in Mandarin that isn't that he's a spy.
Yes. And it's, suspicious things like his conversation on the phone isn't translated, presumably because it's a very mundane, very basic conversation. And as soon as you saw the letter in Mandarin, you said, well, that's not government secrets, that's something innocuous. There's no way that Toby is actually guilty of this.
And of course, it turns out to be a dumpling recipe.
Yeah. Okay, so we've still got that splitting of the cast.
Yeah.
For no good reason.
Jimmy's hot dog related subplot.
Yeah, and also the fact, I think as you mentioned, it was true last time, but it's even more true here of Eves just turns up. I mean...
Yes, this is why I was going to bring it up this time. She walks in on the scene where Jimmy is sucking supposed poison out of Frohiki's boobs, but she just walks in and she's fully appraised of everything that's going on, even though we don't even know she's been contacted.
Yeah, and it feels like we knew we didn't have a lot of time, because it's the whole... Not only is she fully appraised of everything, she says, oh, you're fine, that's not actually poison in it. I know exactly what poison is in the start, despite never having seen it, and not actually have seen what you've got here. But I know it's fine.
Maybe she's just got the place bugged.
Well, she did previously, but I thought they were scanning for bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but also, how did that dart wind up in Froki's chest? Because that did not look right.
I'm not really sure how you can launch it off it was on like a microscope slide, wasn't it? How do you do this?
Well, launch it off a slide with sufficient force to actually embed it into his torso.
Through his clothes. And, yeah. Because I was wondering about the firing power of her wrist-mounted thing anyway, which I guess at close range, yes, you could possibly get something that small through someone's clothing with sufficient force.
But I think it's like the layers it has to go through degrade the possibility that poison actually gets into their bloodstream. And also, the whole lifespan of it being 2 hours is... How often does she have to prepare it? Because presumably you have to go and mix it up somewhere, load the dart, and then know that you've got a 2-hour window to kill someone with it.
True. I also don't think, especially in that small dose, anything would kill you that fast.
No, you're talking exceptionally virulent stuff.
There is a famous supposed way that Soviet agents killed people that involved putting a tiny pellet of a toxic or radioactive material on the top of an umbrella.
Yeah, that's stabbing you.
Because the idea is, you could scratch a agent's leg with it or something like that, and it would slowly poison them over, months, weeks and months, and nobody would know what was happening. It would look like they were succumbing to an illness. But that, again, it's a tiny, tiny amount that's kind of introduced to the system, and that's why it kills them slowly.
Yeah.
How much are you really going to get out of that dart? And the speed, because, like Gilnitz, it kills him the second it hits him.
Yes. And those other two guys also just drop like rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to it's like the rubber mask. We're gonna have to hand wave across the actual technology at play here, unfortunately. But on that note, we would have to say the smuggling the images on the portal pictures is one of those. I can kind of see what you're getting at, but there's a lot of weirdness surrounding that in terms of TV production and also how they're gonna do this information exchange. I mean, the big thing about Captain Toby has complete control of the portal, which is presumably also meant to make you think at this point that he might still be dodgy.
Yeah.
And
it's also his vehemence of the portal must be in this and he won't budge on it.
Yeah, despite the fact that everything else is set up, like he's harkening back to the old days. So why he got a hip and happening producer to spice up his TV program doesn't make a lot of sense, given he didn't seem to like any of his suggestions.
There's kind of a twofold way you can look at the TV show that's kind of interesting. The first way is how reviving shows doesn't necessarily make them better. So you have your things like how many times something like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Masters of the Universe has been revamped to make it hip and with it.
Yeah.
The other one was Langley's kind of reaction to this, and indeed Gilnitz's as well. I think harks back to some of the kind of television controversies, which you particularly see with things like Sesame Street. So over the years, Sesame Street has slowly modernised, of course, because, Sesame Street's older than I am and has been around. I used to watch it as a kid. Everyone loves Sesame Street. But you had there, and I'm doing inverted commas now that you can't see on a podcast, but controversies. So some of the recent ones are the one where headlines ran saying Cookie Monster has been banned from eating cookies because, they're unhealthy, so now he's got to promote healthy eating.
Yeah.
When he's not on the show, what they were actually doing was Cookie Monster now eats things other than cookies because Cookie Monster's promoting the fact there's a balance and you can still have good things, but you have to eat healthy too.
Yeah, makes sense.
And ditto, back in, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, they introduced a character who's a child who's HIV positive to show that, it doesn't really impact her life at all. But at the time, it was right through the coals of things that are inappropriate for children, they don't need to know about it and all the rest of it. And of course, you do.
Yeah.
Kids are non-discerning, kids need to be made aware of these sort of things in a kid-safe way, as something like Sesame Street will provide.
Quite so.
So that's what you've kind of got the feel of with this Captain Toby, where it's the whole, it's not a tugboat, kids don't think tugboats are cool anymore, it's got to be a nuclear submarine. And you can't have your Calliope music theme song, kids won't like that, it's got to be hip-hop.
But the audience is like 5-year-olds.
Yeah, and the audience are not the kind of people who you'd be targeting with things like hip-hop. That'd be if you were trying to market Captain Toby for a teenage audience or something.
I mean, it also makes me think of the Gravity Falls with Diggity Dungeons and all that.
Those were dark days, the 90s.
Yes. I understand what they're trying to comment on. At the same time, it's a children's TV program that's like, is the kill literally to do anything. How the scam works is a bit weird. So Captain Toby has complete control of what goes on the portal, apparently, which means he also has to write the script to say, because he's got to have the call and response from the children, because that's what it's apparently there for.
I presume, therefore, that he has full say of what's on the portal, but he doesn't create the pictures.
Yes, apparently he sends out for them. And
which is where the CIA is, this rogue CIA agent is infiltrating the organisation.
So the Red Chinese plan, now that the show's been syndicated in China, is to intercept the requests for new images every week, month, however often. This must be a weekly show.
This is the most efficient way of doing this, apparently.
Yeah. Putting the special invisible writing onto the poster. And then having already checked in that it's done in such a way that the TV conversion doesn't render it ineligible.
It's also, even if the TV conversion didn't render it ineligible, illegible.
Yeah.
You can tell looking at puzzles like this usually that something is written there even if you can't read it. I'm going to go as case in point. Over Christmas we played a escape room style board game called Dimensions. And there was one puzzle in that involved looking at clues through a red light filter.
Yeah.
But even if you weren't holding up the red light filter, you couldn't read what was there, but you could tell there was something.
Yes. And outside, again, I think it's going to the impossible technology again, where her rose glasses are capable of rendering the writing visible.
Yeah.
Especially as you said, she looks kind of cool with the rose glasses on, but lady, should you be wearing those all the time?
I admit, when I was a kid in the 90s, before I actually wore proper glasses I need to see every day, I had a pair of glasses with pink lenses and I thought I looked awesome.
Yes.
But of course, I was 13 and thought I looked really cool wearing these pink lens glasses. Not an adult woman.
But I mean, it's a unique look, but at the same time, you don't need to wear them all the time. Why are you doing that?
Because it's cool.
Well, yes, okay, it's fair enough. I'll give you that one.
It's her look.
It is her look. I mean, she looks dodgy as hell from the word go. Actually, one thing we have to touch on, because them knowing that they were cancelled at this point is very interesting, is when she detains Jimmy and Eves.
Yeah.
And she just says to Eves, she calls her Miss Harlow. And Eves looks shocked. Like that. Oh, we've hit on something. We're building to something. You did this on the episode you were cancelled? It's too late. It's far too late to pull this stunt off.
Yeah.
To imply that Eves has got some backstory that's actually going to affect things is really odd to do this late on.
I presume at the time it was scripted, we didn't know we were cancelled.
I
and
assume
it was
not.
presumably too late to change things.
You could have cut the line easily.
And technically speaking, we know in hindsight the fact that The Lone Gunman technically does get a wrap-up episode within season 9.
Yeah.
So you do have time to do something with that.
Whatever's going with Eves is, it's very odd to bring it up now.
To be fair, it is the kind of thing you would bring up now if you didn't know you were cancelled.
Oh, yeah.
Because that would be your setup for season 2.
Yes. But I think, to carry on with Eves, though, we have a line that's ill-advised. Because there's the whole point of Jimmy asks Agent Blythe, why are you doing all this? And she didn't answer, but Eve says, oh, obviously it's for the money. Eves, can we have a tally of what you've done in the last...
If we're fair, Eves probably hasn't done it for the money since the Frohickey and Lederhosen episode.
She got paid for that one, I think.
She did, but can you think of a time after that she did?
At
least on screen.
On screen. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that one. But that was her entire motivation for the first 5 episodes.
Yeah, but how much money did she make in the Bond Jimmy Bond episode? She doesn't need the money anymore.
Well, I know, but she's still doing this.
She's probably richer than Jeff Bezos at this point.
And I think you said, why didn't she just move in? Because it would save a lot of time and hassle. Other than, you probably just don't want to live with these 4.
Would you?
Depends. It depends entirely what life with Lone Gunman is actually like. I mean, they do seem to have a very nice living space.
Yeah, it's fairly roomy, actually.
It's fairly roomy. One thing that got me, though, was that whole thing of them reading the newspapers to find the stories that are fallen between the cracks. And there's a whole thing about the mainstream media are told what to print, and they're looking for the stuff they don't cover. And it's kind of a nice encapsulation about the Lone Gunman's mindset. It should not be in episode 12. It should be in episode 2 or 3. I mean, this should be like the episode after Jimmy is brought on board, is that they then go through this whole, this is how we look for stories thing.
Realised I should have possibly made that clearer as well, because of course the connection with the Wizard of Iz is the idea that things can be coded into images.
Possibly, yes.
When I mentioned that is significant, that's the significance of the Wizard of Id, is the fact that it puts the idea in Bayer's head that a message can be encoded in an image.
Yeah. And Jimmy, of course, reads that because the rest of the Lone Gunman don't trust him to actually read the news, which is fair because it's Jimmy.
I believe it was an actual comic strip as well, The Wizard of Id.
Okay.
In the same way, all the shows that Langley mentions at the start, like Captain Kangaroo, were all real TV shows.
Yes, and we speculate that Captain Toby is basically a drop-in replacement for Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, I'd say so. He's that kind of idea.
But Mr. Rogers especially isn't referenced by the rest of the voiceover.
Yeah.
So that would seem to be what they're actually going with. This is Langley's
You do get the impression there's nothing sinister about Captain Toby. He seems to be a genuinely nice guy who cares about the kids.
Yeah, it's another one of these episodes where it feels, I think I said it feels sloppy while writing it. It's like Eve's walking in knowing everything.
Yeah, bits like that, I'd agree. I think on the whole it actually holds together fairly well, if you can get past the ludicrous idea of this is how we're getting information to China.
Yeah, But one thing that kind of bugs me, and it's just something that wasn't set up properly, is you've got the coda where the puppeteer is now the front man for the Captain Toby show.
Yeah.
And it's at no point.
He's still called Wayne.
He's called Wayne. But at no point in the preceding episode has there been he wants to take on a larger role. He doesn't want to be the puppeteer anymore. Captain Toby wants to retire. That's not even voiced.
I've also got to say that Wayne is my favourite thing in this episode. I love Clarence the Crab, our kind of puppeteer who periodically just speaks through Clarence the cigar-smoking crab, who loses his cigar in the modern version as well. But also, even down to the level of when they're toasting the memory, Clarence the Crab also has a kind of glass of whiskey in his claw. Yeah. It's so cute.
That's very cute. I don't mind. It just feels like it's something that should have been built up, or there be some kind of insinuation earlier that this was in the works, or that he would like to do this.
Yeah.
Because generally, puppeteers remain puppeteers. They don't usually become people on stage, do they? If you're a puppeteer, you're generally backstage for a reason. You don't want to be in the limelight. You do occasionally
see them. Think like Frank Oz sometimes appears in person on things, but he's best known for the likes of Yoda and Fozzie Bear.
And directing things as well. He's a director, he's usually doing puppeteers, he's got occasional walk on roles, yeah.
Mm. So there you are, you have a puppeteer who's also an actor.
But not the star. Frank Oz has never been the star.
No, that's true.
It's just that whole thing with Wayne, it feels like there should have been a build-up to it or something. It just feels an odd coda to put on your episode.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as you sort of said, they knew they were cancelled at this point, is it like some stealth thing of, this is how Doggett arrived or something? Captain Toby is Mulder, the crab is Scully, and Wayne is Doggett.
I want this on record, you're comparing Scully to a Muppet crab.
It's a very cool crab.
Clarence is awesome.
Exactly. Do we have much else for this kind of mess of an episode again?
Stop calling it a mess. It's beautiful.
It is a lovely, heartfelt episode.
And even other than sucking Frohicke's poison boobs, the humour in the episode I think is a lot better as well.
That's true.
I still hate this running joke about Langley looking like a girl, but I quite like all the stuff with Jimmy running around in the hot dog suit under cover and things. That's quite entertaining.
Yeah, despite is the whole you can't stealth in a hot dog suit, Jimmy.
I also am concerned by the lack of people's concern for him when he falls from a great height. Because you'd like to think, because, he falls over the balcony in a mall, he lands on his back on a table full of donuts below, so presumably he would have died if that had not broken his fall there.
Yeah.
But, until Eves arrives, nobody tries to approach him. Does the kind of Scully effect of not knowing first aid span to everyone in the world?
Yes. I think one thing to bring up as well, though, is that this episode does not reference Langley in its title.
No, but again, it really is the Langley episode.
It is a Langley episode, but he didn't get anything.
It's not a Cap and Langley show.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to get a spoof out of it, but something.
Maybe we realise that, mind you, Planet of the Apes sounds like nothing like Planet of the Frohickeys, so you're not even playing on words.
No. I mean, there's no reason why you can't have Langley in the title of this episode and not just reference the Cap and Toby show, which you might look at it and go, what is that?
Yeah, but Planet of the Frohickeys.
Yeah, no, it'll go. Planet of the Apes got something to do with monkeys. Fair enough. Maximum Buyers, if you know what Maximum Bob is, okay, judicial system.
Diagnosis Jimmy, it's about Jimmy and it's in a hospital. There we are.
Do we have much else for this?
No, it's fine. As I said,
it's fine.
I'm still going on the basis of we've seen an uptick in the episodes. It's not good, but it's better than the doldrums, as you called it.
Yes. So next time, we have one episode and some sum up for this, which is not going to be kind, but anyway, if you would like to, again, do an impassioned defense of Lone Goodman, we do. I will agree with the guy who told you that yes, it does pick up after the Tango episode. Way too late to be pulling itself back together again, especially if it's not going any further forward.
Well, it's no wonder it was cancelled shortly after that, to be honest.
But it still weirds me out that despite the 4 executive producers who came over from the X-Files, they've managed to craft and control a TV series that can't stick its actual dynamic down. But if you'd like to defend the Lone Gunman or anything else, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and do hook me up if you'd like me to promote anything X-Files related at the start of the show. We're on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42, Mastodon at GetStrange42@universedon.com, and on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Also, if you're not sick of my voice right now, I also have a channel on Twitch TV in the name of AdverseCamber42. I stream video games live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT and Saturdays at 5 PM GMT. At the moment I'm playing Yakuza 4 Remastered and Disco Elysium.
Fun times. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsgettingstrange, where for as little as $3 a month you can help us keep the lights on and gain access to our bonus episodes, including our Let's Play of the X-Files game from 1998.
Yep.
I keep getting the day wrong. Where you control Craig Gilmore, who looks for Mulder and Scully, who have gone missing. And you can die in a variety of humorous ways.
Including ones that involve Mr. X.
Yes, he did murder you rather a lot because you kept on doing the wrong thing when he was on screen.
It was hard to tell which way I was facing.
Our theme music is Envisioned by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on Compotech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
Put the wind at your backs and a song in your hearts.